I'm very much grateful and honored by NAFTA Forum, especially Mr. Saab and his team, that they have provided me this opportunity to speak on this very critical issue and topic. Having said this, let me start with this, that when we are looking about discrimination in transfer of technology and its impact on the South Asian strategic environment, it generates two caveats in my mind. First is, the discriminatory transfer of technologies may alter the strategic equilibrium in South Asia. Certainly. Second, in this context is that arms race between India and Pakistan is dangerous for conflict sustainability and having potential to lower down the nuclear threshold in South Asia. Second important thing is, in this case, the nuclear threshold, and if you recall, in the last 3 months, this discourse which is in the national and international media, you will find that these kind of the indications were there. It raised two interlinked questions in our mind. One is, what is discrimination, or why there is a discrimination in transfer of a technology? And second, how is great power's selective discriminatory approaches in transfer of nuclear or military or other technologies or dual use technologies is affecting the South Asian strategic environment? I've divided my presentation into three, you can say, sections. One deals with the constructs of this strategic environment, why there is a transformation. We should be very much aware of it because the regional strategic environment is very much, you can say, dependent or dictated by the international strategic environment and what is happening in the current international strategic environment, and those happenings definitely would be influencing the states' decision making while they are approaching the NSG membership or other nuclear supplier or these kind of the things. So my first construct in this case is that the features of the change in the global politics are very much visible today. Therefore, today you will find that the states' foreign and strategic policies are in a process of the revamping, and they are reshaping, or you can say regaining, the new strategic partnership, and the focus is more in the South Asia and Asia particularly. The shift in the international politics having a direct impact on the South Asian strategic environment, and that's why today you cannot ignore that once again we are rushing towards the traditional conceptualization of the security environment, and on the basis of that, we find that the great powers are constituting some kind of a relationship with the South Asian actors, especially India and Pakistan. When we look about these kind of the things, we find that there are three important happenings at the global level. One is when you see that Asia Pacific, which we call it America's pivot strategy in the containment of China in the Asia Pacific, and at the same time the Russians' resurgence, and of course the Chinese, you can say, assertive policy in the India-China Sea. All these three categories, you can say, collectively gives you the impression that the today world is not like what you are witnessing the world prior to 2012. Now, in this context, when I've said 2012, because Asia Pivot Strategy started taking shape in the 2011 and 2012, everyone was looking in that context. Because of these developments, we find that South Asian strategic environment today is very much complex, ambiguous, unpredictable, volatile due to two reasons. One is India-Pakistan's strategic competition, and the other is great powers' interest in the adjacent regions of the South Asia. And that's why you'll find that many people are now writing a great game is happening in our neighborhood. The great powers are engaging the South Asian states for the pursuit of their global strategic environment, and in this you can say objectives, and that's why if you see just since November 2014, the US Department of Defense is working on Defense Innovative Initiative, and it has also declared to assist or improve the military systems to their special transfer technology to their allies. Similarly, if you recall last year on June 4, the then American Secretary of Defense, Carter, has very categorically said that they are working for by making bilateral, trilateral, and multilateral alliances for looking the regional security in Asia Pacific. Similarly, when we look about these kind of the things, we can also not ignore that similar kind of statement last year was issued by the Russian national security strategy, in which they have also emphasized, or you can stress on the alliances building, but they said that the US is allegedly threatening Russia in the West, in the East, and in the Arctic. European impose, and in this context, they are imposing some kind of the, you can say, sanctions. Having said this, when we look about the South Asian strategic environment, definitely we find that South Asian states are equally eager for cooperation with great power to sustain their regional autonomy and purchase high-tech military hardware. Now here when you say regional autonomy, maybe it's fit for Pakistan, but at the same time India in this context desired for regional hegemony, but at the same time in a greater Asia where they look about their Indo-Pacific strategy, definitely they have the same objective. But in this context, if you see, India and Pakistan both are lacking sophisticated military know-how, and therefore both states are dependent for the development of their military hardware and sophisticated other technologies on the technologically advanced nation. In this case, when we are looking about these kind of the things, what we find, in a conclusion, in a very simplest manner, in this first case, one can say that the constituency of arms control in both India and Pakistan is lacking. And if the constituency of the arms control is lacking, then it means that both states are manufacturing military hardware indigenously, purchasing weaponry, you can say externally, and at the same time transferring or importing some kind of the technologies which are dual use, which can be employed and used for the refurbishing of their nuclear missile development. In this context, there is a very important thing which reminds us in the context of South Asia. For instance, India is endeavoring to institute the preemptive nuclear counterforce strategy, or a capability, coupled with this cold start doctrine and proactive military operations strategy at the limited conventional war level. The coupling of these two things is very important for us to keep in mind, and it's impossible for India to do without the foreign assistance. And in this context, 2 days back, I mean that on May 20, 2017, Prime Minister Narendra Modi first time permitted local private companies to work with the foreign players to make high-tech defense equipment in India. And this is a big change in the India's, you can say, open market policies. And at the same time, he announced that India is going to spend 250 billion US dollars to modernize its armed forces over the next decade. If you focus on these two developments which happened in the last 2 days, what is going to be an outcome? The outcome is that New Delhi Armed Forces Modernization Scheme become very attractive for the military industrial complexes such as the United States and the Western nations, and at the same time it is alarming for the South Asian strategic environment. The great powers' selectivity in transferring of the sophisticated technology to improve their allies' indigenous research and development programs is very much visible in the last 15 or 20 years. When we try to focus on this selective cum discriminatory approach of the transfer of technology, in the case of South Asia, we find that it is dangerous for the regional stability. It is going to subvert the conflict sustainability among the belligerents or between the belligerents neighbor, and it is also, you can say, encouraging the arms race. It's very important to note that in theory, as a student of international relations, we all know that the discriminatory transfer of technology policy of the supplier nation in a nuclearized region lowers the nuclear threshold, precisely increases the chances of conventional war into a nuclear exchange or war. And since the end of the Cold War, and especially after the 1992, the shift in India's, you can say, foreign policy, we have been witnessing that India is importing directly and indirectly these technologies for the perfection of its indigenous nuclear and missiles program. And it's very interesting to note that when the Americans or the other American-led world adopt these selective and discriminatory policies for the transfer of these technologies, especially in the realm of nuclear and space technology, they claim that it's for a peaceful use or peaceful application of the technologies. And as you all are aware, that the peaceful use of nuclear and the space technology is having or is also very much relevant for the military usages, because when we say that once you have a reprocessing, uranium enrichment, or as you can say space launch vehicle technologies, you can very comfortably convert your civilian nuclear and space program into nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles program, and may also use this technology for missile defense system. So in simple words, we say the state having uranium enrichment or reactor spent fuel reprocessing facility is capable to upgrade these facilities to manufacture fissile material for the devices. And in this context, if we are looking about the 2004, what you call it, the space cooperation agreement between, space technology cooperation agreement between United States and India, and 2005 Indo-US nuclear deal, we can very, you can say confidently conclude that they are developing some kind of a covert cooperation which is going to, you can say, support their offensive and defensive missiles program as well as their nuclear weapons perfection or nuclear modernized weapons advancements. Having said this, when we look about these kind of the things, what the Americans are also here encouraging, and there is also become not only in a one state discriminatory policy, but also the other like-minded state discriminatory policy. There are four major charters. When we look about the four major technological charters like nuclear supply group, on the support, because of the support of the Americans, India received the waiver in 2008. Then with this, the second major charter is missile technology control regime with the support of the United States. India is now a full member of the missile MTCR since 2016. There are two left over, and they are not very significant. Let's say one is what we call it in this context. One is the Australia group, which deals with the chemical and biological transfer of technology, and the fourth one is Wasner arrangement. But my point is that in the first two cases, which are very critical for the transfer of technologies, they are very much in favor of, the developments are in favor of India. Having said this, when we are looking about these kind of the developments, what are happening? If you see, paradoxically speaking, that Washington's primary objective is to build India militarily to check the Chinese rise in Asia. That is understandable. That is very much, you can say, find a logic in the Indian literature as well as American literature. But at the same time, where you can say there is something missing which is not explicit, and that is that while India is determined to advance its military muscle to establish its hegemony in the South Asia, and this hegemonic aspiration may be acceptable to some extent to the smaller neighbors of India, but Pakistan is, you can say, having an unwavering policy to sustain its sovereign stature in the international community, particularly in South Asia. This effort of Pakistan certainly creates some kind of a frustration within the India, and that frustration we have noticed last year when the Prime Minister Modi first said to isolate Pakistan, and secondly he announced that what you call it, surgical strikes against Pakistan. This kind of frustration one cannot ignore in the near future, and the frustration of the Indian leadership definitely will be multiplied despite this transfer of technology. But this transfer of technology, the problem is that it is giving the Indians a confidence, two kinds of confidence, or three kinds of confidence, that politically they are viable. That's why the technologically advanced world is cooperating with them. Militarily, they are very much, you can say, advancing, that because they are getting the modern technology in the shape of aero missile technology, in the space of other, in the shape of other things. And at the same time, regionally, they find is that, oh, it's good for us that our muscle is fattening and we are able to go for preventive war with Pakistan as they tested the surgical strike sort of things. And these things becomes more, you can say, alarming, especially you have unsettled chronic Kashmir-like disputes, and you can say supra-complex mindset in India. So having said this, what we find is, my third point is that the absence of war between India and Pakistan is due to the continuity of strategic equilibrium between the belligerent neighbors. Importantly, even the Indian leadership irresponsible destabilizing claim about the conduct of surgical strikes in September 2016. But it did not spiral into a lethal border conflict. But here, when we stop it, that what can be, one can conclude out of all these things that transfer of technology is taking place, supremacy of India is on in the process, determination of Pakistan to sustain its, you can say, autonomy in the region, and all these kind of things. And of course, on the other side, Pakistan is also getting something under the grandfather clause from the China in the shape of the nuclear reactors, and then we are also developing the Thunder kind of the JF-17 Thunder. So some kind of, what I can conclude here is that though there is a discrimination in transfers of technology by great powers in South Asia, and which is in the advantage of India, and at the same time Pakistan is also balancing, but this balancing act of Pakistan and India's, you can say, as a recipient of this transfer technology is very much, you can say, dangerous for regional stability. It set a process of transition in military capability, sustaining arms race that is perpetually changing or challenging the deterrence equilibrium in South Asia. Today, we can find the conventional arms race, which is in the advantage of the India, but at the same time, India is also, you can say, building BMD and Cold Start doctrine, but which is resulting at to the vertical proliferation in the nuclear realm in South Asia. That's why you find that in both states, there's an upward trajectory in the nuclear realm, and both states are developing tactical nuclear weapons. They are introducing new generations of the weapons, like in the delivery vehicles, like multiple re-entry vehicles, and at the same time, both states seems determined to focus on the military development rather than realizing the non-traditional conceptualization of the security. Thank you very much.